Hello, everybody. Welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you for clicking by. This is all things vinous. If you are interested in wine, then of course, please do stop by here and listen, maybe with a glass in tow. Now, I structure my presentations to suit syllabuses of certain wine courses and certifications. And this is no exception. So I do get quite in depth here, but if you are interested in learning about the key white grape varieties of Austria, learning about where they come from and what they taste like and how they act in the vineyard, you will find this information here. Please do let me know if you do enjoy Austrian wine. Have you tried the likes of Welschriesling, Gruner Veltliner and Riesling, or maybe one of the more obscure grape varieties that we don't tend to find exported too much? Maybe you've been to Austria, maybe you have recommends. Please do get in touch by commenting on this video below. But here we're going to look, of course, at the series on Introduction to Austria, to Series 1, and we're on Part 3 here, which is the key white grape varieties. Now, this video, along with the next on the key black grape varieties, are available as free content, but all the others in this series are only available on my e-learning portal. You'll see the details at the bottom, also in the description. That's www.winewithjimmy.com. Lots of exclusive video content, lots of questions to help you with your wine studies or your fascination of wine. So let's get stuck into the good stuff, talking about key white grape varieties. Now, here is a list of the 2022 figures for the hectares of the grape varieties and therefore the share in total. So this also incorporates red. Now, we're only showing the white grape list in this presentation, however, and in black, I have highlighted there the grape varieties we'll go through in this presentation, but bear in mind, remember, there are many other, like Gold Muscateller, for example, Müller-Thurgau, Muscateller, which actually got some fair importance, Muscat Ottonel, Rotgipfler as well, which is a really interesting one, Scheuerrieber, interesting, Silvaner, Traminer, Weissburgunder. But we're going to be focusing here on Gruner Veltliner, Riesling and Welschriesling. Combined, those will tot up to about 43–44% of the total production of Austria. So let's get stuck into our first, and of course, in terms of quality and in terms of volume, you are looking at Gruner Veltliner being the most important. So let's take a look at it. So as I mentioned, 32.5% of the plantations of Austria, so just under a third, are Gruner Veltliner. It is in fact a natural cross between Traminer, otherwise known as Savagnin, and also very likely an obscure vine found in St. Georgen am Liethenberger near Eisenstadt. Unlike Riesling, it does not thrive in dry soils, so it's better suited to clay and low soils, which can actually retain higher levels of water. It can be very vigorous if planted on richer, fertile soils, and so therefore you need to manage the canopy quite well, and that's in order to keep the vine, of course, in balance. Now, it can be a very thick-based skin. So you'll often find those thick skins can be a little bit problematic, certainly if they are kept in contact with the juice for too long, giving a phenolic kind of phenolic bitterness and a bitter taste to the wine. But locked in those skins, and certainly in the skins into the pulp, you have a chemical compound called rotundone. You'll see it at the bottom right of your slide. This is the compound that we find in things like black pepper, juniper, for example, and if found in grape skins, like with Syrah and things like Mondeurs in Savoie, it will give you a peppery character for these wines, like a white pepper character to the wines. So let's talk about its key style. Now, the wines made from Gruner Veltliner have a medium +2 high acidity and are typically not oaked. They will range from fairly simple wines, which have citric and green fruit aromas that are made, of course, for early drinking. They're typically acceptable to good quality and they're relatively inexpensive or mid-priced. But then look out for the much more sort of lower yielding old vine expressions found on terraces near the Danube, for example. These will be pronounced citric and peach with great complexity of aroma and flavor and can have significant age behind them. You can find that white peppery note, of course, and they tend to be very good to outstanding and often towards premium price. Do look out for age when they get this kind of toasty, nutty, honeyed characteristic behind them, which is just wonderful. Next up then, in terms of plantations, comes Welschriesling. So this is, and immediately this is the broadcast that needs to be made. It is not related to Riesling, okay? Welschriesling is different. So it's the second most planted grape variety in Austria. The name Welschriesling is important to break down. So the word Welsch means foreigner in our German or Austrian dialect, and it suggests that the variety was introduced to this area from abroad. So into German-speaking countries because of the word Welsch, from abroad. So typically, the hypothesis stands that it was introduced from the Dalmatian coast, so Croatia, where one of its synonyms is found, and in fact is today the key name of the group, which is Grashvina that you see just here. So in fact, if you look in the Wine Grapes book by Jancis Robinson, it doesn't lead with Welschriesling. You have to index it by Grashvina, and it will say the synonym is Welschriesling. So that is the main sort of name because we believe it comes from that area today. Also look out for the name Lasky Riesling in places like Slovenia and also in Serbia. Olas Riesling in Hungary, Riesling Italico in northern Italy, and of course Welschriesling here. Now it's productive, late budding and ripening, but it does retain its acidity even when it's late ripening on the vine, especially if the yields are controlled. It's suited to drier climatic conditions, warmer soils, and it's relatively cold hardy. It's susceptible to things like powdery mildew, and it's less so to downy mildew and botrytis bunch rot. So what about the skins of this as well? So there are also large plantations in Burgenland and around the humid Neudzeli Lake region. So that's the border of Hungary. And thanks to its very thin skins, it can be affected by noble rot and therefore used for sweet wine production and then labeled as Birnauslese or Trocken Birnauslese. Now, these wines will have very high acidity with pronounced tropical fruit and then dried fruit, and they can develop wonderfully well in bottle. They're absolutely loved and admired in German-speaking countries, these sweet Welsh Rieslings, typically very good to outstanding and premium prices. Also look out for Welsh Riesling used for sparkling sect. Because of its neutral character and good acidity, it actually makes very good base wine. So what do we expect then? It has high levels of acid, but neutral character, so typically light amounts of something like apple or pear, a little bit floral as well. It's actually mainly found in the south, in Styriamach, and it's usually made in fresh, neutral, unoaked, dry wine styles of acceptable to good quality and an inexpensive price. Now, plantings are in decrease because the variety isn't hugely admired as a dry, neutral wine, but some people are certainly focusing on it a little bit more. And then our final grape here, Riesling, accounting for just under 5% of the total plantings in Austria, but one of the most prized. They are fiercely proud of their Riesling. It's mainly found in Lower Austria, the Niederösterreich, where it is the second most planted white grape variety in that area, but it is the third most white planted grape variety. It's typically founded in the warmest sites on thin soils, as it needs less water than Gruner to thrive. Most of the top Riesling protagonists are based on south-facing slopes on the north bank of the Danube. Brondelmeier, Hitzberger, Noll, Leumer, Nikolhof, FX Pichler that you see on your left-hand side of your picture, Schloss Gobelsberg, Undhof Salomon, Domain Wachau, to name a few. There is the Riesling Smaragd, Leubner, Steinertal, you see on the left-hand side just there. What do we expect from it then? The wines are nearly always dry from Riesling, can be full-bodied with a lot of broad shoulders, with medium alcohol, sometimes going up to high with the likes of FX Pichler, with with ripe stone fruit, sometimes tropical, and high levels of acidity. Many of them improve with time. 10 to 20 years is often the cited time that you should be aging them for, where they become nutty, honeyed, and have, of course, that petrol, kerosene character to it. They're very good to outstanding, and they command, of course, premium prices. Well, thank you very much. Of course, the buck doesn't stop there. They're the three major ones. There are many others, like I mentioned early on in the presentation. Maybe one day I will do a presentation on some of those more unusual and unique grape varieties. Now, please do join me for part 4, looking at the key black grape varieties, such as Blaufränkisch, Saint Laurent, and of course, Zweigelt. If you do have any questions, any comments, I'd love to hear from you. Have you tried these grape varieties? Do you like the richer style Gruner? Do you pick up the white peppery rotundo note in the Gruner Veltliner? What's your view on an Austrian Riesling in comparison to an Alsace or a German Riesling? Please do get in touch. You can do so by commenting, of course, below. But until next time, I've been Jimmy Smith, and ciao for now. Goodbye.